I want to go to the amendment itself. It is simply 3 sentences. I want to read the whole thing once, and then I want to go back to each sentence.
Sure.
Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Do we have a graphic that I can read, that folks can read along at home with this? It says, no person, corporation, or business entity of any type, domestic or foreign, shall be allowed to contribute money directly or indirectly to any candidate for federal office or to contribute on behalf of or opposed to any type of campaign for federal office. You go on to say, notwithstanding any other provision of the law, campaign contributions to candidates for federal office shall not constitute speech of any kind as guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution or any amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The last sentence, Congress shall set forth a federal holiday for the purpose of voting for candidates for federal office. First off, before we get into the analysis, Mark, what is your first response to the general framing and language in that draft?
Well, I love it. It's really bold, Dylan, and what Jimmy's done is really taken a full slate on this. I mean, people have tried to take different cuts at it, but they've always kind of stopped short of pulling the full Monty here, and that's what I think is both bold and really in many ways brilliant about it, because that really is the only way. And what would surprise a lot of people is how many people would actually agree with this approach, because candidates hate raising the money, the donors hate being hit up for the money, the system is awash in the money, and I can tell you, as the greedy bastard who used to spend the money on the advertising on a campaign, 90% of it is wasted. We don't need it.
Those darn greedy. The problem, Mark, is that we're all greedy bastards depending on the day and time and the system that we put ourselves in. And at the end of the day, a system with money in politics brings out the inner greedy bastard in everybody. I want to look at the individual sentences quickly, and then I want to go. We have a bunch of feedback for both of you from the social media universe. This was originally posted on the internet a few hours ago, so we had some questions. But sentence number 1, Jimmy, no person, corporation, or business entity of any type, domestic or foreign, shall be allowed to contribute money directly or indirectly to any candidate for federal office, or to contribute money on behalf of or opposed to any type of campaign for federal office. 2 questions. Why the decision, instead of saying you can't give money, you say you can't take money? Why'd you make the decision to say I'm not going to, it's like the NCAA, the players can't take money. You can try to give money to the players all you want, but if you're going to play college sports, you can't take money. If you're going to be a federal politician, you can't take money. It's sort of the NCAA model, if you will, in the framing of this, and also why the additional language where it says contributors on behalf of or opposed to any type of campaign for federal office.
Well, let's start with the second part, the second clause of the sentence, and go and work backwards. It's a majority of the money in politics, as we saw in the 2010 cycle, and as we have been seeing increasingly over these cycles. It's not what you raise for your actual campaign coffers and then spend on TV. It's what somebody else raises for your campaign coffer, or for your candidacy or against your candidacy. When the Supreme Court,
is that the super PAC?
That's it's super PAC. It's any kind of independent expenditure.
So the super PAC is addressed in this first sentence.
It is addressed in the second part of the first sentence, because you are not allowed to raise money or spend money on a
Why catching money as opposed to giving money? Why the NCAA structure, if you will?
Well, the point being is that, listen, it's simple. I don't want the burden of this to be necessarily on individuals or their rights.
I want the burden. Catching Mark McKinnon or catching whoever it is, Dylan Ratigan, giving money, it's not about a citizen giving money, it's about a politician taking it.
I don't think that politicians by nature are corrupt. I don't think lobbyists by nature are corrupt. I don't think fundraisers by nature are corrupt. Every one of those entities is operating within a system that they only know. If you just take it all out, then every single one of those groups of people can do their job. Members of Congress won't have to fundraise. Lobbyists won't have to raise money. Fundraisers can just go out and either become lobbyists, or they can help run campaigns or whatever.
You agree? What do you think about what you're hearing, Mark?
I like it. The question I wanted to ask, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead.
No, please do.
I'm familiar with the public financing ideas and have pushed them for a long time. This is the first time I've heard it extended to the whole notion of banning individual corporations as well, and I like it. The question is, if that's the case, and I know there are different funding mechanisms that we might look to, but how do you determine who gets to qualify for that? And how do you keep everybody from qualifying if it's a public funding mechanism like that, or do you have some kind of match?
And we got a lot of that, by the way, from the social media universe and Twitter and all the rest of it, which is, okay, this is great, you banned the money, you've got the money out, but how do you plan on actually financing elections, and what's the mechanism, and who's going to solve that problem?
How one qualifies to run for federal office is state law. Has nothing at all to do with the feds. That's an interesting way of looking at it. It is sort of this bicameral system, if you will. If you want to run for Congress and you're from the Commonwealth of Virginia, you have to go through the machinations that the Commonwealth of Virginia has set out to actually qualify for office.
I get that, but there's a bigger question here, which is how are you going to finance elections if this amendment passes?
This amendment
and who's going to decide that?
Let me be clear. This amendment does not touch how you finance federal elections going forward. All it does is say you can't contribute money to an election. What do I think happens?
So Mark, the idea is, so the idea, I guess, Mark, in this, if I do interpret Jimmy, is we want to. We're bleeding. We want a healthcare debate. We want an energy debate. We want an education debate. We can't get it because there is a green curtain of money around Washington, D.C. that is preventing us from having these debates. Do you think it's appropriate, to Jimmy's point, that we simply make this somebody else's problem? In other words, that we are here to say get the money out, and it is there are a lot of smart people that should be able to figure this out. Fair?
I think that's really smart too. Let them solve that part of the problem, but take on the first part of the problem, which is the real issue, and just prohibit the funding by corporations, candidates, PACs, or people.
I hate to use this analogy, but the alcoholic needs to dry out. We got to take the liquor out of the system at this point. For lack of a better analogy, I hate to use it. My father was a drunk. I hate to use it, but it's the truth. Congress is drunk on money.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, and if that's the case, then we may get into a discussion where we should have been for a long time, where we talk about solutions where there's access to public airwaves and those sort of solutions, which make a lot of sense.
Let us hope that this movement to get money out precipitates a debate that goes to where you're going, Mark. What, if anything, what would be an appropriate thing for me, having sort of put myself in this position quite by my own choice and with great gusto, I might add, but what could No Labels do to help us? And would you be up for signing a petition like this, Mark?
Oh, well, my only problem is that I've called for a pledge not to sign any petitions for anybody.
Fair enough. But I realize that. So I'm curious, though, with No Labels, I would love to talk to you about what we can do with you.
Pledges. Well, we're trying to change the process, and this is a great discussion about how you change the process of how Congress works and how politics works. So I think there's lots of organizations out there. Lawrence Lessig, who's been working on this, just had a constitutional convention. I'm in Cambridge right now. It was this weekend and was packed to the walls with people. So there's all kinds of organizations out here. I think when you pierce this, as you're doing right now, that you're going to find I think you're going to see an eruption, a volcanic wave of support headed your way. Well, and I'm glad to do all I can from my end.
You know, and we appreciate that, and appreciate your efforts and your contributions to catalyze the focus of this conversation. Jimmy sticks around with the mega panel. We let Mark go. There has been an overwhelming response, as you might imagine, to our conversation about getting money out of politics this fine day. So much so that the petition site has been repeatedly taken down, but last I heard was back online.